My name is Emma Carter, and on my 18th birthday, my parents told me I wasn't allowed to celebrate because my sister, the golden girl of the family, didn't feel special enough. That night, as everyone pretended the day had never existed, I packed my backpack and walked out of that house. No tears, no goodbyes. A year later, on my 19th birthday, they showed up again. But this time, it was to witness something they never thought I could achieve. And when the spotlight turned toward me, their perfect child couldn't take it. Her jealousy tore the family apart. What about you? Have you ever been hurt by the very people who were supposed to love you? Tell me where you're watching from, and share your story so I know I'm not alone. I grew up in a house where the light always shone in one direction toward Olivia Carter, my sister. From as far back as I can remember, every dinner, every conversation, every plan revolved around her name. My mother, Linda, would constantly say, "Did you hear? Olivia got chosen as the cheer captain. The whole school's proud of her." My father, Robert, would simply nod and smile, as if her success was proof they were good parents. And me? I'd sit quietly at the corner of the table, cutting my potatoes carefully, making sure the knife didn't scrape the plate because I knew my silence made everyone more comfortable. I still remember that summer BBQ vividly. The sun was blazing over the backyard, the smell of grilled meat filled the air, and laughter echoed everywhere. Mom had her arm around Olivia, proudly telling the neighbors that her daughter had just won first place in the state cheerleading competition. The neighbors gasped in admiration, asking for her secret to raising such an amazing child. I sat alone under the tree's shade, my iPad resting on my knees, sketching the moment, Olivia's blonde hair glowing in the sunlight, while I was just a tiny outline in the corner of the picture. When Mom saw me, she frowned, pulled me up, and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't ruin the family's image. Sitting there drawing looks weird." R.it. I stayed silent, slipped the iPad into my backpack, and forced a smile. Maybe in my family, only things that shine bright enough deserve to be seen. One evening, when I was 13, I was coloring the first sketch I'd ever felt proud of. Olivia passed by my room, glanced at the paintbrush in my hand, and said, "Do you really think anyone would pay for those stupid little drawings?" I didn't answer. She smirked, grabbed the brush, and snapped it against the desk. That cracking sound echoed in my head for years. I was about to pick it up, but she was already gone, leaving behind the scent of her expensive perfume, the one Mom always said was the smell of a winner. I still keep that broken brush to this day. At first, I thought I was just holding on to the only thing that ever truly belonged to me. But as I grew older, I realized that brush was a reminder that sometimes what breaks isn't an object, but a child's belief that they too could be loved in the most ordinary way. Every time I look at it, I tell myself, if they can't see the value in my art, then I'll paint a new picture of myself. When I turned 15, I began to realize I needed my own space, a place where I wouldn't be compared, where I didn't have to shine in the way others wanted me to. I transformed the old garage behind our house into a tiny studio, where I repainted old clothes and gave them a second life. I hung a handwritten sign on the door that said, "EC Studio, give your clothes a second life." When Mom saw it, she gave a cold little laugh. "This house doesn't need junk. If the neighbors see that, they'll think we're poor." I lowered my head and kept painting lines of color on the denim fabric. I didn't argue, but deep down, I knew what they feared wasn't my failure. They feared being judged. As I grew older, I learned the art of silence. When Olivia was praised, I nodded. When Mom bragged about her eldest daughter, I smiled. I didn't want to add more weight to anyone's shoulders, nor did I want to beg for space in a family portrait that never had a frame for me in the first place. So I quietly kept everything inside my drawings: faceless figures, flowers blooming from cracks, houses without windows. I drew until my hands ached, and one thought echoed in my mind. Someday, they'll have to see me not because I scream for attention, but because light has a way of finding its own path. I always thought my 18th birthday would be a milestone. Nothing grand, just a small evening with my 4 closest friends, a chocolate cake, a few string lights around the backyard, and the playlist I'd made called Becoming Me. I had spent 3 months working part-time at Mr. Young's print shop, saving every penny for that night. I wanted to pay for everything myself, so no one could say I was asking for too much. To me, it wasn't just a party, it was a statement that I was old enough to choose how I wanted to live. 2 days before my birthday, while I was sketching the final denim jacket design for my mini collection, my mother walked into my room. Her voice was calm, but there was a kind of stern weight in it that made the air grow heavy. "Emma," she said, "we need to have a serious talk." I set the brush down, wiped my hands, and sat up straight. "Olivia's been really upset," she began. "She just got cut from the state cheer team. She hasn't eaten all week. I think, maybe you should postpone your party. Don't celebrate right now, you'll only make her feel worse." I looked at my mother, waiting for some sign that she was joking, but there wasn't one. Only that familiar coldness in her eyes, the same look that had always made me believe my feelings were something unnecessary, something to be hidden away. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "it's my birthday. I've been planning this for months. Don't worry, I'm paying for everything myself." She tilted her head slightly, her lips pressing into a thin smile. "You're being selfish, Emma. Can't you see your sister's hurting? Family means learning to sacrifice for each other." I stayed silent. My father sat in his chair across from us, holding a newspaper, never lifting his eyes. He just murmured, almost out of habit rather than concern, "Try to understand your mother." Ah! I wanted to tell him that after 18 years, I already understood more than enough. But I knew that in this house, any form of protest would only make me the ungrateful one. So I nodded, pretending to understand. Mom looked at me for a moment, then turned away satisfied, believing everything was settled. When my birthday night came, I still bought the small chocolate cake not to celebrate, but to remind myself that the day still belonged to me, even if no one else remembered. I placed it on the kitchen counter, lit a single candle, and sang softly to myself. As the flame flickered, I heard my phone buzz. It was an Instagram notification. Olivia had just posted a photo. Her face covered in a mask, a cup of ginger tea in her hand, with the caption, "Even when you lose, you're still the star." Over 400 likes in just a few minutes. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not out of jealousy, but because I suddenly realized I had never truly existed in the world they lived in. A world where every emotion could be captured, filtered, and posted for praise. And me, the one who always stayed in the background, wasn't even allowed to light a candle for myself. I cut a slice of cake and ate it alone under the dim yellow light. The bittersweet taste melted on my tongue, as if my entire childhood had been wrapped inside that single piece, small, quiet, and unwanted by anyone else. I washed the plate, wiped the counter, and went upstairs. At 11:47 p.m., I opened my closet and packed a few clothes, the broken brush, my iPad, and my sketchbook into a backpack. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, messy hair, dark circles under my eyes, and a girl who no longer wanted to beg to be loved. I walked down the stairs, careful to avoid the creaking boards, and quietly opened the front door. Outside, Portland was draped in a light rain. I pulled on my hoodie, tightened the drawstrings of my bag, and looked back at the house one last time. I didn't leave a note or a goodbye. They wouldn't notice I was gone, at least not right away. I just whispered softly, only for myself to hear, "If I can't belong here, then I'll build a place of my own." Ah! As I stepped through the gate, the wind picked up, blowing out the last birthday candle left burning in the kitchen. But I didn't turn back. In the damp night, every step I took sounded like a declaration of who I was becoming. It wasn't an escape, it was the first time I ever walked on my own, free. I walked 2 blocks through the Portland rain. I had no plan, just a single name flashing in my mind like instinct. Mr. Young, the owner of the print shop where I worked part-time on weekends. The neon open sign flickered faintly through the mist as I arrived. The door was unlocked, the steady hum of the printer blending with the familiar smell of ink and paper, calming my heartbeat. Mr. Young looked up, surprised to see me standing there soaked, clutching my backpack. I just said quietly, "I can't go home. I just need a place to sleep for a few days." He studied me for a moment, didn't ask a single question, then nodded toward the back stairway. "The storage room upstairs has a couch. It's not fancy, but it's clean and warm. Stay there, Emma." That night, I lay on the old sofa, listening to the rain tapping against the metal roof, the faint scent of fresh paper surrounding me. No arguments, no judging eyes. Just silence, pure, unfamiliar peace. I looked at the broken brush beside me, closed my eyes, and thought, maybe, for the first time in my life, I can finally rest. In the days that followed, my life revolved around two things: school and work. In the mornings, I helped Mr. Young pack orders, in the afternoons I went to class, and in the evenings I cleaned up the print shop. He didn't talk much, but every morning, there would be a paper cup of coffee and a donut waiting on my desk. "For the little artist," he'd say before walking away. Those small gestures made me feel a little less invisible. On the weekend, I ran into Mia, my best friend from high school. She threw her arms around me and started crying the moment she heard what had happened. "You can't live on that couch forever," she said, then suddenly brightened. "Let's restart that old denim project from last year. But this time, we'll do it seriously. I'll film, you paint. Let's make something new together." So one Sunday afternoon, we cleared out a small corner of Mr. Young's garage, hung a white backdrop, and set up her phone on a tripod. I repainted an old jean jacket, each brushstroke flowing to the rhythm of the music Mia had picked. When it was finished, I wrote the caption. "Every line tells a story, and this is how I'm rewriting mine." We uploaded the video to TikTok, expecting nothing. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Thousands of views. Then tens of thousands. By the afternoon, it hit 200,000. The comments poured in. "Thank you for reminding me that something old can still become beautiful. I was told my ideas were useless once. Now I want to try again." I read each message, my eyes burning. Maybe the world wasn't as cruel as I thought. Maybe I'd just been standing in the wrong place for too long. From that day on, EC Studio was officially born, short for my name, Emma Carter, but also every creation. Every piece I painted carried a small symbol, a broken brush stitched near the hem. Mia helped me film videos regularly, and Mr. Young's print shop became our temporary studio. He'd just shake his head and smile whenever he saw me spreading paints all over the table. "Do whatever you need, as long as you clean up after," he'd say. A month later, I gathered all my sketches and sent them to Miss Patel, my old art teacher. I didn't expect anything, just wanted some feedback. But 2 days later, she called back, her voice trembling with excitement. "Emma, do you have any idea? The State School of the Arts just announced a special scholarship for independent creative projects. Your portfolio could be a perfect fit. You need to apply right now." I went silent for a few seconds. For the first time in years, someone didn't just see me, they believed I could go somewhere. Sitting in that little attic room, I opened my portfolio and went through each image, adjusting every photo, every line of description. Every brushstroke, every word carried a piece of my story, the girl who was once told that her art had no value. That night, after submitting my application, I stepped out into the backyard and watched the streetlights shimmer across the puddles. Portland was still wet, but my heart felt warm. I knew life wasn't going to be easy. I still didn't have a home, I was still sleeping on a couch, still worried about tuition. But at least now, I was living a life of my own choosing. And as I thought about that, I smiled to myself and whispered, maybe an 18th birthday doesn't need cake or candles, it just needs a beginning, and I found mine. One early April morning, while I was printing new jacket designs at Mr. Young's shop, a middle-aged woman walked in. She introduced herself as Lauren Price, a journalist for the Portland Voice, covering a column called Young Creators. I was stunned when she said she had seen my TikTok video and wanted to write a story about the teen who turns old clothes into art. At first, I hesitated. But Mr. Young gave my shoulder a gentle push and said, Tell your story. Sometimes, the world needs to hear a real voice. 1. The article came out a week later, on the front feature page, titled, "From Garage to Gallery, the Teen Who Turns Thrift into Art." There was a photo of me sitting among piles of colorful denim jackets, smiling shyly, still holding my familiar broken brush. I never imagined that a small article could change my life so quickly. Within days, my TikTok account gained tens of thousands of new followers. My inbox was flooded with messages, people wanting to buy jackets, others asking to collaborate, and even high school students seeking advice on how to start their own projects. I read every single message, feeling both overwhelmed and moved. Everything was happening so fast, as if the universe was finally compensating me for all the years I had been invisible. Then one afternoon, I received a call from the organizers of the Portland Youth Art Fair, the biggest youth art exhibition in the region. The woman on the line said, "We're very impressed with your project, Emma. We'd like to invite you to showcase your Second Skin collection in next month's Sustainable Art section." I nearly dropped my phone. Me, the girl who was once told, "Don't embarrass the family," was now being invited to represent the young art scene of Portland. Mia practically screamed when she heard the news. "Oh my God, Emma, this is huge." She immediately opened her laptop, created a product catalog, and placed the EC Studio logo on a poster. As for me, I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about every little detail, every time Mom scolded me for making a mess with paint, every time Olivia rolled her eyes at my drawings. And now, the very things they once called meaningless had become the reason I could stand on my own. But that joy didn't last long. Just a few days later, I found out Olivia had seen the article. A friend sent me a screenshot of her Instagram story, a photo of me from the article, captioned with a sneering line. "Funny how some people just need a pity story to get attention. Everyone knows the truth." Below it was a laughing emoji. I read that line over and over, my hands trembling not with anger, but with disappointment. Even after everything, a small part of me had still hoped she'd be happy for me. But no. Olivia never wanted to share the spotlight, she only wanted to keep it for herself. That night, my phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "Emma, can you stop doing these embarrassing things? I've had so many people ask why you keep showing dirty old clothes online. Do you want everyone to think we're poor?" I stared at the screen for a long moment, my heart pounding. All my life, my mother's words had been like clean, sharp cuts, not bleeding, but sinking deeper with time. But this time, maybe for the first time, I didn't want to stay silent. I took a deep breath and typed a short reply. "It's not a show, it's my life." The message turned, seen. No response. A minute later, my phone's screen flashed again. "This user has blocked you." I wasn't surprised. I just set the phone down on the table and sat quietly in the small room above the print shop. The window was slightly open, the cold air drifted in, scattering a few of my sketches across the floor. I watched them swirl through the air like tiny kites breaking free from their strings. I opened my laptop and replayed my very first video. In the comments, someone had written, "Thank you for reminding me that I don't need anyone's permission to start over. I won." I read that line again and again, feeling as though someone had gently placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You're okay now." That night, I painted a new jacket white fabric, with a single crack running across the heart, and underneath, the words, "Still art, still whole." I realized then I didn't need their validation anymore. All I needed was to keep creating something beautiful, with the same hands that were once dismissed as useless. And for the first time, I understood, sometimes, to find your true worth, you have to be willing to be called the one who embarrassed the family. One foggy morning in Portland, while I was labeling new jackets to ship to the art fair, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in a year, Dad. I froze for a few seconds before answering. His voice was low and deliberate, as if he were choosing every word carefully to avoid another argument. "Emma, you should apologize. Your mother hasn't been sleeping. You know she has a weak heart." I gripped the phone tightly, staring out the window. Outside, The Portland rain had started again. I wanted to ask him who would apologize to me for 18 years of being treated like the unwanted one. But all I said was, "I'm fine." Then I hung up. What followed was silence. His silence, her silence, and the silence of everything that had long existed between us. A week later, I was mixing paint when the inbox free C Studio lit up with a new message titled, "Formal Complaint, Plagiarism." My heart started pounding as I opened it. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear, an accusation claiming I had copied the design concept from another brand. Attached were side-by-side images comparing my painted jacket to an existing online design. At the bottom, a line of threat. "We'll take this to the press if you don't issue a public apology." I collapsed into my chair, feeling my chest tighten as if someone were squeezing the air out of me. Cold sweat broke out across my skin. For the past year, I had poured every ounce of honesty into my work, and no one but me knew where those lines came from. From rainy nights, from the pain of rejection, from my own story. But the world outside didn't know that. And sometimes, one rumor was all it took to destroy everything. 3 days later, that fear became real. A short article appeared online with the headline, "Teen Artist Accused of Plagiarism, the Dark Side of Viral Fame." A photo of me at the exhibition was placed right beside the comparison images. The comment section was brutal. "She's just another fake. Everyone knows fast fame comes with dirty secrets. Ugh, another pity story. Boring." I didn't need to investigate who was behind it. The tone, the timing, the phrasing, it all carried a signature I knew too well. Olivia. She had never been able to stand the idea of me having my own light. And this time, she wanted to snuff it out completely. That night, I sat in the storage room, phone in hand, my fingers trembling as they hovered over the delete TikTok account button. Everything I had built, the videos, the people who believed in me, the students who had written to say thank you, suddenly felt fragile, cruelly so. I started to cry. Not because I was hurt, but because of the helplessness that comes when the truth is twisted, and people are so ready to believe the worst version of you because it's easier to digest than the real story. The door creaked open. Mr. Young stood there, holding a cup of coffee. He looked at me, didn't ask any questions, just set the cup down on the table. "News, huh?" he said. I nodded. He sighed. "You know, Emma, when I first opened this shop, people said I'd stolen the idea from my competitor. But I didn't argue. I just kept printing sheet by sheet, day by day. Eventually, people realized who was really doing the work." He sat down across from me, his voice gentle but steady. "Don't let them rewrite your story, let the truth tell itself." I looked at him for a long time. His words pulled me back to the ground. I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and turned on the camera. No script, no lighting, just me. My face bare, eyes swollen from crying. I looked straight into the lens and said, voice low but firm, "This week, someone said I stole my designs. I won't fight it. I just want to say one thing. You can take my idea. You can redraw it. You can copy every single line. But you'll never have the hands that created it. Because every line here is a scar, and every color is a piece of my real life." I paused for a moment, then gave a faint smile. I didn't create EC Studio to prove anything. I created it to remind anyone who's ever been told their dream was a joke that you don't need anyone's permission to keep believing in it. I posted the video and turned off my phone. I didn't expect anything, I just needed to say it once. The next morning, when I came downstairs, Mr. Young was smiling, holding his phone. "You should see this," he said. On the screen was my video, over 3 million views, hundreds of thousands of comments. Most were words of support. "Thank you for speaking up with grace. This is real art, not a stunt. I was falsely accused once too. Thank you for reminding me to believe in myself." I went silent. No defense, no justification, just honesty. And somehow, that honesty had reached more people than I ever imagined. I sat down, watching the morning light stream through the window and fall across my hands, the same hands that once trembled under other people's words. Now, they simply held the brush, steady and calm. In my head, I could still hear Mr. Young's voice. "Don't let them rewrite your story." And for the first time, I knew I would never let that happen again. One early summer evening, I was sorting through a pile of invoices in the storage room when my phone buzzed. A strange number appeared on the screen: Seattle area code. The message contained just 3 words. "Are you okay?" I stared at it for a long time. The sender had signed it. Rachel Carter. That name pulled me straight back into the hazy corners of my childhood, my aunt, the one my mother had forbidden me to mention. I remembered how, every Thanksgiving, Aunt Rachel would send me hand-painted postcards, and my mother would toss them into the trash, saying, "Don't grow up to be like her, rebellious and reckless." I hesitated for a few minutes before replying. "I'm okay, how are you?" Her response came almost instantly. "I saw you in the paper. I'm so proud of you. But there's something I need to tell you, something you should have known a long time ago." Then, a strange feeling rose in my chest, part curiosity, part fear. I typed back, "What is it, Aunt Rachel?" The typing dots disappeared, and then a long message appeared, along with attached photos of bank documents. The first line made my heart stop. "Your mother withdrew your entire college fund, $38,000, to pay for Olivia's national cheer camp." I read it 3 times, my pulse going silent. And Rachel continued, "I found out 3 years ago when your mother asked me to help transfer the money. I tried to tell your father, but he said, 'Don't ruin the family.'" I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I even realized it. All those years I blamed myself for not being good enough, for not living up to their expectations. Well, in truth, they never intended to give me a chance. My mother had stolen my future to buy another spotlight for Olivia, and called it sacrifice for the family. I typed back, "Well, now the family ruined itself." Aunt Rachel didn't respond right away. Then my phone rang, a video call. Her face appeared on the screen, a few more wrinkles than I remembered, but the same gentle eyes. "Emma," she said softly, "I know you've had to stand on your own for a long time, but you don't have to fight alone anymore. There's a recycled fashion workshop here in Seattle this summer. I know the organizer. If you want, I'll cover everything. Come here. Start fresh, somewhere no one knows your name." I sat there silently, her words sinking deep. For the first time in years, someone was speaking to me not with pity but with belief. I nodded slowly, my voice trembling. "I'll come." A week later, I packed a small suitcase and said goodbye to Mr. Young and Mia. Mr. Young patted my shoulder and said, "You need to go far enough to see how strong you've become. But remember, this door will always be open." Mia squeezed my hand, smiling through tears. "I'll visit Seattle every weekend. And don't forget to film your new designs, the internet still needs you." The bus ride took over 3 hours, winding through fog-covered hills. When we finally stopped, Aunt Rachel was already waiting at the station, scarf wrapped around her neck, her smile soft and steady. She pulled me into a long hug, the faint scent of lavender wrapping around me. "Welcome home," she whispered. And right there, on the quiet street under the gray Seattle sky, I broke down in tears. Seattle was nothing like Portland, faster, busier, but somehow it didn't feel suffocating. Aunt Rachel lived in a small house near Fremont, with an empty room upstairs that she said I could use as my studio. In the first few days, I helped her clean, repaint the walls, and set up a wooden desk near the window so the morning light could pour in. When I opened the box that held my broken brush, she looked at it and said softly, "I remember that. You've kept it all this time?" I nodded. "Because it reminds me why I started." That. The recycled fashion workshop Aunt Rachel had mentioned was held in the Ballard Art District, gathering young designers from across the state. I came just to observe, but when people saw my designs, their reactions caught me off guard. An older designer named Marion Chu approached me, pointing to the broken brush symbol on one of my jackets. Do you realize this could become the emblem of an entire movement? She said. It's about rebirth, about what it means to create from what others have discarded. Her words made me tremble. For the first time, what I created wasn't dismissed as trash but recognized as art. With Marian's mentorship and Aunt Rachel's unwavering support, I opened a small studio upstairs in my aunt's house, reviving the name EC Studio, but this time, I wasn't alone. I had a small team of young creators from the workshop and Mia, who continued managing our media presence remotely. Together, we transformed forgotten materials into wearable stories. Denim jackets patched with old maps, dresses made from torn parachutes, tote bags crafted out of retired canvas banners. Each piece carried a tag narrating its journey from being thrown away to being reborn. One late night, as I was finishing the final stitch on a jacket, Aunt Rachel came up with a cup of hot cocoa. "You know," she said in a warm, low voice, "I used to be like you." "Oh, Atem." She sat beside me, eyes distant but kind. "Your mother and I were close once, but when I chose art over business, she said I was a disgrace to the family. We just took different paths. The only difference is, I left earlier than you did." She looked at me and smiled faintly. "I've always believed that in every generation, there's one person brave enough to break the cycle. And that person is you." I sat there quietly, my throat tightening. For the first time, I understood why my mother had cut her off and why my aunt still chose to open her heart to me. In that small room in Seattle, I felt something I'd never truly known before. That family isn't always defined by blood, but by those who give you the courage to begin again. In the weeks that followed, EC Studio, Seattle Edition began to gain recognition. Art schools reached out for collaborations, new workshops invited me to teach. Every time I stepped on stage, I carried that same broken brush with me, a reminder that today's light was born from yesterday's cracks. What I didn't know then was that this journey of rediscovering myself would eventually lead me back to Portland. Back to the past I thought I had escaped forever. A year later, I returned to Portland. No longer the 18-year-old girl who walked out into the rain, but the young founder of EC Studio, invited to exhibit my collection Second Life at the Portland Youth Art Fair. The very exhibition I once could only watch from behind the fence. And the irony? The event fell exactly on my 19th birthday. That morning, I stood in front of the mirror in my small Seattle apartment, adjusting the black blazer streaked with silver paint, a piece I had designed myself. Every brushstroke on it carried the memory of nights when I wanted to give up but chose to keep going instead. I looked at my reflection and smiled, not because I had made it, but because I was still here, standing tall on my own terms. The exhibition was held at the Portland Cultural Center, where golden light spilled through the glass windows, warm and shimmering. I had sent open invitations to the public, the press, art students, and even past customers. Everything was prepared: the slideshow, the background music, the setup. I hadn't planned this as an act of revenge, but deep down, I knew today would be the day I closed the old chapter once and for all. As I entered the gallery, camera flashes went off. I could hear the whispers ripple softly through the room. "That's the girl who was accused of plagiarism last year." I smiled faintly and nodded in greeting. Beside me, Mia squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, today's not about payback, it's about taking my voice back." Item. Then I saw them. My parents, Linda and Robert Carter, walking in, dressed as if this were their grand debut. Mom wore an ivory coat, a thick pearl necklace gleaming at her throat. Dad followed calmly behind, as collected as ever. And Olivia, in a bright red dress, hair curled perfectly, held up her phone, recording a story in her honeyed voice. "Hey everyone, my sister's little art show. Let's see what she's got." I recognized that fake smile, the same one that used to make me shrink into silence. But now, all I felt was distance. When the opening ceremony began, the host introduced me. "Please welcome Emma Carter, founder of the sustainable brand EC Studio, an artist who turned her own story into inspiration for thousands of young people." Applause filled the room. I walked onto the stage, heart steady, steps grounded. But before I could speak, my mother stepped forward quickly, taking the microphone. "Excuse me," she said sweetly, flashing her perfect smile. "I just want to say a few words. I'm the mother of Emma and Olivia Carter. Our family is so proud to have two talented daughters, one in art, one who was once the captain of a national cheer team. We've always supported our children wholeheartedly." Then she turned to me, her tone sharp beneath the sweetness. "Isn't that right, Emma?" The room fell silent. I looked at her for a long moment. Below the stage, Olivia was live streaming, her phone light glowing on her face, radiant, confident, and entirely fake. And in that instant, I felt every ache, every humiliation of the past years converge into a single, fine thread of resolve. I stepped closer to my mother and gently placed my hand on the microphone. "Thank you for coming, Mom," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Today, I also have something to share. Not to prove who's right or wrong, but to remind everyone that truth, no matter how deeply buried, still has value." I pressed the remote in my hand. The screen behind us lit up. The first slide appeared a photo of me at 16, holding a sketchboard with the caption, "A girl who dreamed of studying art in college." Then, the next slide. A bank statement. "Withdrawal, $38,000 transferred to Cheer Camp Foundation, Olivia Carter." Gasps rippled through the audience. A few people covered their mouths. A reporter lifted his camera. My mother's face went pale. My father lowered his head, his hands tightening into fists. I kept my gaze steady on the audience. "That money," I said clearly, "was supposed to be my college fund, but it was used for something else. I'm not telling this story to humiliate anyone. I'm saying it because sometimes silence itself is a form of deception." 1. Olivia suddenly stormed forward, snatching the microphone from my hand and shouting, "You always want to be the victim. You think a few stupid paintings make you better than everyone else? Without Mom, you'd be nothing." The whole room froze. Mom rushed to her, forcing a strained smile. "Olivia, stop it." But she yanked her arm away, her face flushed red. "No, Mom, I'm done. All year it's been about her, Emma Carter, the inspirational girl. But they don't know she's been propped up. That Aunt Rachel sponsored her, that this whole thing was staged." A reporter raised his mic from the crowd. "Can you confirm that you weren't the one who sent the plagiarism email last year?" Olivia spun around, voice cracking with rage. "I'm just telling the truth, and yes, I sent it, because I couldn't watch a hypocrite use pity to get famous." At that moment, the stage mic was still on. Her voice echoed across the entire hall and was live-streamed straight through her own account. The phone screen was still glowing, and over 1,000 viewers were watching her unravel in real time. No one moved for several seconds. I just stood there, watching my sister, the once golden girl of our family, trembling, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. Cameras flashed. Reporters began recording every second. I stepped forward slowly, gently taking the microphone back. My voice was low, calm. "I don't want anyone to get hurt. But sometimes, the truth finds its own way back no matter how deeply we try to bury it." Then I turned to Olivia, meeting her eyes. I never wanted to steal anyone's spotlight. I just wanted a small corner where I could be myself. The room was silent, so silent I could hear my heartbeat. And then came the applause. First a few claps, then more, until the entire hall erupted waves of genuine, thunderous applause. Not for tragedy, but for truth, for courage. I bowed, then walked off the stage, leaving behind the lights, the cameras, and my family frozen in the middle of the crowd. Outside, the Portland wind was cold, but my chest felt light, as if I had finally set down the weight I'd been carrying for years. Mia ran up and hugged me tight. "You did it, Emma," she whispered. "You finally took your voice back." I smiled through tears. "No, Mia," I said softly. "I didn't take it back, I just gave it to the one who deserves it, the truth." 2 days after the exhibition, Portland was flooded with news. The video of Olivia Carter screaming and publicly admitting she'd sent the fake plagiarism emails spread across every social platform. The same outlets that once called her a national cheer icon now changed their tone, splashing cold headlines across their pages. Golden Girl melts down in public after sister reveals family scandal. Some commenters called it instant karma. Then, others wrote, "Poor sister, she just wanted to live honestly." I scrolled through it all, then turned my phone off. No satisfaction. No victory. Just a strange hollowness in my chest, as if I had finished a long battle without remembering what I was fighting for. 3 days later, someone texted me. Olivia lost all her sponsorships. I didn't respond. But when I checked online, every brand she'd partnered with had released statements ending their contracts, citing ethical concerns and inappropriate conduct. Her social accounts vanished, leaving only old videos being reshared with mocking captions. The brilliance my mother once called the brightest light in the family had gone out in a matter of hours. Soon after, my mother was caught in the same spiral. In a parent association group she once led, someone leaked documents showing she had misused charity funds, along with the old bank records proving the withdrawal from my college fund. She was forced to step down, deleted her Facebook account, and her brief public apology received hundreds of cutting comments. "Weren't you the one who taught others about morals? Now we know why your daughter left home." A 1. And my father, the man who had always chosen silence to keep the peace, had nowhere left to hide. Public pressure forced him to move out, renting a small apartment near his office. An old friend told me he'd seen my father sitting for hours at a cafe, staring out the window, untouched coffee growing cold beside him. Robert Carter, the man who stayed silent until silence destroyed his family, read one line in The Voice. When I saw that, something ached inside me. But I didn't celebrate. Not for a single second. Because what I felt wasn't triumph, it was emptiness. Everything I once thought would bring me justice, everything I believed would make me feel seen, now felt like the faint echo of a battle that had already lost its meaning. I remember sitting alone in my Seattle studio, the white fabric on the wall catching the soft glow of the lamp, and feeling a sorrow I couldn't name. My phone rang. It was Aunt Rachel. Her voice was calm but firm. "I know you're reading the news, Emma. But listen to me, don't let them pull you down with them. They're living in a hole they dug themselves. You don't have to stand at the edge to see how deep it goes. Step out of their story. You've already written a new one." I stayed silent, listening to the soft sound of Aunt Rachel's breathing on the other end of the line. "But if you still feel empty," she continued gently, "then turn that emptiness into something useful. Pour it into something good before it pours back into you." That night, I sat alone in the studio, staring at the growing stack of invoices and new contracts. EC's studio was expanding faster than I'd ever imagined, orders coming in from across the state, invitations from art schools, and most importantly, thousands of messages from people saying my story had helped them believe in themselves again. I thought of the 18-year-old girl who once ate birthday cake alone in a dark kitchen. I thought of the child who held a broken brush and dreamed of painting something that mattered. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I opened my laptop and created a new account. The name, New Canvas Foundation. In the description, I typed, "A scholarship fund for students who lost their chances so they can paint their own story again." I decided to donate 70% of EC Studios' profits to the foundation. Not because I wanted to prove anything, but because I knew what it felt like to have opportunities stolen from you, and I didn't want anyone else to go through that alone. When the press release went out, some people called it an attempt to rebuild my image after the family scandal. But I didn't bother to explain. I posted only one message on the official page. They could take my opportunity, but they couldn't take away my belief that art and kindness can always start over. Dawn. Hundreds of comments poured in. Some wrote about being forbidden by their parents to pursue art. Others said their daughters now wanted to study design after watching my videos. Reading those words, I felt something warm and light spread through me, not happiness, exactly, but peace. I didn't know whether my mother, father, or Olivia ever read that post. Maybe they did. Maybe they were angry, embarrassed, or regretful. But it didn't matter anymore. I had stepped out of their story to write my own. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night without hearing that whisper in my dreams. You're so selfish. Because now, I finally understood. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's simply refusing to let the past define you anymore. News about the new Canvas Foundation spread faster than I expected. Many of the same outlets that once covered the Carter family scandal now wanted interviews about my inspirational journey. Oh. One reporter from the Portland Daily called, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Emma, the public is fascinated by your story, your journey from rejection to success. Would you give us an exclusive interview? I stayed quiet for a moment, then smiled. Thank you, I said softly. But I don't think that's necessary. This story isn't about tragedy, it's about beginning again. The line was silent for a few seconds. Maybe she was disappointed, but eventually, she understood. I no longer wanted to keep retelling my pain just to evoke sympathy. I just wanted to live quietly, peacefully without needing to be anyone's symbol. In the months that followed, life found a slower rhythm again. Every week, I taught a free design class for a group of students at the community center. Each time I watched them sketch giggling when their lines went wrong, I saw a glimpse of my younger self in them. A childhood that was never allowed to draw outside the lines, never allowed to make mistakes. And I told myself, if the next generation can create freely without fear of being belittled, then maybe my pain wasn't meaningless after all. One February evening, on my 20th birthday, I received an email from an old address, Linda Carter, home at. My heart sank a little. It had been almost a year since the last time we spoke. I opened a blank reply window and typed just one line. I forgive you. But I'm not coming back. I sat there for a long time before pressing send. No tears, no shaking, just a still, unmistakable clarity. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean returning. Sometimes, forgiveness simply means refusing to give the past the power to hurt you again. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom, no words, just a photo. A round white cake, the icing slightly uneven, with the words written in shaky frosting. Happy birthday, Emma, we're sorry. Under the candlelight, I recognized the handwriting slanted to the right, the lines of icing breaking here and there. Mom was never good with her hands, and I knew this must have been the first cake she'd ever made herself, not for a photo, not for show, but as an apology she'd never spoken aloud. I stared at the photo for a long time. A part of me wanted to reply, to say that I missed them too. The old kitchen, the weak smell of morning coffee, the breakfasts where I sat waiting for someone to ask, "Are you okay?" But I put the phone down. Not out of bitterness, but because I knew if I replied, I'd be pulled back into a story I had already walked away from. I stepped out onto the balcony. Seattle was drizzling, the raindrops glimmered under the streetlights like 1,000 silver brushstrokes falling from the sky. I took a deep breath, a light, warm feeling filling my chest. Downstairs, I could still hear the sewing machine humming softly. EC's studio had grown into a small community space, a place where people came to mend old clothes, to learn how to sew, to share stories, and sometimes, simply to sit quietly and drink tea. I looked through the glass window and saw a little girl, maybe 12 years old, fumbling with a piece of fabric, clumsy but persistent. And in her, I saw myself, the girl who once believed her dreams were too small for anyone to care about. A cold gust of wind blew through, lifting a few sketch pages into the air. I smiled and whispered, "It's okay, they'll land where they're meant to." All day. Then I walked back inside and took the broken brush from the wooden shelf, still there, unchanged, just as it had been the day I carried it in my backpack when I left Portland. I placed it in a glass frame and hung it on the wall of the studio. The small plaque beneath it read, "Broken but never useless." The light reflected off the glass, shimmering like the candlelight on the birthday cake from my mother's photo. I didn't need to look at it again. I just whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Thank you for teaching me that some wounds only show us we've healed when we finally dare to face them. Then I turned off my phone, turned off the lights, and let the room sink into the soft glow of the Seattle night, quiet, peaceful, stripped of noise and past, leaving only the present I had painted with my own hands. To you, the one who's been hurt by the very people you call family. I know that feeling when you try so hard just to be seen, to earn a single kind word, a gentle hug, and all you get in return is silence or comparison. But remember this, you don't need their approval to have worth. Sometimes, real love begins the moment you choose to walk away, when you choose peace over the endless need to please. Take that pain and use it as the raw material to paint the life you deserve, strong, free, and full of light. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't forgiving them. It's learning to love yourself after everything.